In the year 1066, Edward, the King of England, chose Harold Godwin to be king as he lay dying. The choice Edward made compromised his promise to William, Duke of Normandy, that William would be the next king. This compromise led to the conflict and conquest of England, which married feudalism to English government and paved the way for a stronger centralized government. As the year 1066 began, few of the humble farmers in the small Anglo-Saxon villages that dotted the English countryside noted the passing of the previous year. They merely carried on their simple lives, most likely taking for granted the Anglo-Saxon government, which was, at that time, one of the most advanced governments in the world. Able to muster a massive army or a decent tax, the system worked similarly to democracy. Twice every year, courts consisting of all free males in a village would meet to discuss the law of their village and were presided over by thanes, which acted as lords of that area. Smaller courts met each month to discuss tax, administrative, and military affairs. Each man gave the village thane an oath of fealty, or holy oath, ensuring their loyalty to him, and each person knew their place, which was slightly similar to the feudal system. And though the king's control was relatively limited, people were happy to partially govern themselves. Let's take a trip back in time to set the stage for events to come. When the Danish invaders, led by Canute, conquered England in 1015, they killed the English king Ethelred. Young Edward, the son of Ethelred, was not only depressed, but astonished when his Norman mother Emma then married Canute, her husband's rival and killer. All of Edward's family, aside from his mother, were either killed or exiled to France, where they were hospitably accepted by Emma's foreign relations. One of these relations was the Duke of Normandy, a French kingdom at the mouth of the Seine River. During Edward's stay, the Duke became father of a bastard son named William. Raised and bred for knighthood in a society that was constantly at war, William's turbulent childhood ended when his father died, and left now 7-year-old William as Duke. Now William had to deal with frequent uprisings by barons and often other family members. Luckily, barons allied with Normandy would assist him if necessary. Meanwhile, in England, after 2 of Canute's sons, miserable attempts at king, the Witan, an English council of powerful churchmen and elders, decided to reintroduce the Anglo-Saxon royal bloodline. Edward, the last living son of the former King Ethelred, rushed to England with an entourage of Norman friends that would advise him throughout his kingship. He was crowned king on Easter Day and married to Edith, daughter of Godwin. Probably out of gratitude for those who had cared for him in his time of need, Edward promised his second cousin, the bastard William, the throne of England after his death. For a long time William bragged of this promise, giving each of his Norman subjects the idea that he would soon be the English king. Years passed. William married Matilda of Flanders in 1052. Then, in 1065, Harold, son of Godwin, was given a mission by the king. Harold was sent to Normandy to confirm William's right to the throne. When Harold arrived, William forced him into a holy oath that, when it was broken, would serve as justification for William's invasion of Britain, a major conflict that would have a lasting impact on the English way of life. Just a few days into January 1066, the sickly Edward died. With some of his final words he told Harold, according to the Vita Edwardi Regis, "I commend this woman and all the kingdom to your protection. Serve and honor her with faithful obedience, as your lady and as your sister, which she is, and do not deprive her, as long as she lives, of any honor she has received from me. I also commend to you those men who have left their native land for love of me and served me faithfully. Take an oath of fealty from them if you wish, and protect them and retain them, or send them with your safe conduct across the channel to their own homes with all they have acquired in my service." Meaning that in addition to his wife and the kingdom, Edward gave Harold Godwin the power to keep the Norman men in his service. After much debate by the Witan, it was agreed that Harold should become king. For his part in passing the kingship to Harold, Edward compromised his promise to William, but Harold, in accepting the throne, compromised his oath to William as well. Across the English Channel in the feudal kingdom of Normandy, William, the Norman Duke, was out on a relaxing hunting party. The hunt was ruined by Harold's messenger, who bore the news of the succession to the English throne. William pondered his next move with an injured sense of pride. He was forced into a corner of possible shame. He had to take action in order to maintain his reputation. The compromised promise and his boasting had put him in the position he was now in. Meeting all the barons of Normandy in early spring, he announced his risky plan to invade and conquer England. He persuaded the nobles to support him with promises of riches and land. He also convinced the Pope to give his blessing by telling him about the oaths that Harold and Edward had compromised. To finalize his plan, William told the French king that he would owe him nominal allegiance and remain tied to him. William now had all the support he needed. The Duke constructed a massive army and a fleet to defeat the English king. Many of the Norman nobles and those from surrounding feudal kingdoms agreed to supply William with ships and men, the greatest addition of these being the large numbers of Flemish and Breton troops. These men, along with Norman professional knights, gave William about 7,000 men. Norman knights, unlike English soldiers, fought on horseback and were vital members of the feudal system. William arrived at the French coast in early August with all of his men, horses, and cargo, but he was forced to wait until mid-September to launch his ships due to a lack of wind. Just as William was landing at Hastings on the English coast, Harold was forced to move his militia patrol from South England after hearing news of a Viking invasion further north. Soon Harold would be confronting Harald Hardrada, another contender for the crown. William waited at Hastings, making a fort for his men out of timber and soil, as Harold defeated the Vikings at Stamford Bridge. On his way back to London in early October, Harold received news of the Norman invaders and began immediate preparations, stopping only at an abbey from his childhood to pray, and replacing those soldiers he had lost at Stamford Bridge with Englishmen he picked up along the way. By the time he had reached a place near William's fortifications, Harold had depleted the surrounding area of men as well as the provisions to sustain the 7,000-strong army that would be arriving on the 13th of October. On the morning of the 14th, William ordered his men to begin marching towards Caldbeck Hill, also known as Senlac Hill. Harold's men had strategically taken the top of the hill to give themselves an advantage. William's forces lined up in organized, intimidating formations, and the archers fired, killing few English. Then William assaulted head-on with his cavalry. They smashed into battle with the English housecarls, bodyguards for the nobles, and the Fyrd, a simple militia. The housecarls wielded fearsome battle-axes that could kill a horse and its rider in one swipe. For hours the battle raged on. Weary and depleted, the Normans decided to feign a retreat down the hill. Harold's forces followed the retreating Normans, but found that at the bottom of the hill they were no match for the Normans, who quickly slaughtered them. William, at first expecting resistance, marched towards London while his men pillaged the countryside. William met up with the English archbishops and all the English nobles to accept oaths of fealty and to establish his dominance. Nearly a year after he had first heard of Edward's compromise, William was victoriously crowned King of England on Christmas Day. As king, William was faced with the great responsibility of governing a conquered nation. In order to manage the widespread lands he had taken control of, he appointed 180 earls, each with their own manor to oversee. The land grant the king gave to them was called a fief. In exchange for the fief, the nobles would provide the king with knights and money. Then each noble would give each of his knights a fief of land, as well as financial support in exchange for military service. The knights would give the peasants that worked their manors a dwelling and protection in exchange for their work and their money. This feudal system was a compromise between the upper and lower classes of society, because everybody had to give a little to get a little. The main difference between this and the Anglo-Saxon government was the lack of control by the people. The introduction of feudalism into English society was an important event because it reorganized the government and gave more power to the king. This helped a stronger national government issue laws for the well-being of the people that could be put widely into action. Amongst other things, the good order that William established is not to be forgotten. It was such that any man might travel over the kingdom with a bosom full of gold unmolested, and no man durst kill another, however great the injury he might have received from him. The previous Anglo-Saxon government had not been strong enough to enforce many laws. However, one fault of William's that impacted all the land was his extraordinary greed. In order to maximize taxing, William issued the Domesday Book, and counted every man's possessions. He then taxed them for all of these possessions, which caused financial troubles for many. As the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle said, "He reigned over England, and being sharp-sighted to his own interest, he surveyed the kingdom so thoroughly that there was not a single hide of land throughout the whole of which he knew not the possessor, and how much it was worth. And this he afterwards entered in his register." As you can see, William attacked and conquered England because Edward and Harold compromised their promises. This caused the peasants and nobles to unknowingly compromise in a feudal government, which paved the way for stronger centralized government.